Okay, now let's add this more complex path. So first of all, we want to create a new path, a new shape layer. Make sure that you didn't select anything. Go to Pen tool and just draw from this point. Click here. And then let's go to this point below and click here. And if you will click and hold, you'll be able to create this kind of Bezier motion. And let's go back to this first one. And we can also click and drag to create this circle. As you remember from motion path, we would want to have these handles parallel to each other and also would have same kind of width. So now we can just scroll through this animation and make sure that this path is about on the center of our circle. So let's move it to the left a bit, here as well, scroll through, and just adjust it a bit to make sure that it looks right. Okay, it looks pretty good. Now what we want to do is to rename it to the path 2, because it's our second path. We can change our stroke to maybe 11. And here where we can introduce more color to our gradient. We can go to stroke and change it to this linear gradient and click OK. Then select the selection tool to be able to see this gradient. And we can change these both points. For example, this second point, we can set this below and this one on top. And now by clicking on this stroke, we can introduce as many colors as we want. For example, this one we can set even to a bit more cyan greenish color. Then here at the middle, we can introduce more of yellow color, bright yellow. And here in the end, we can select this final color and maybe change it to this as well. And click OK. And now as you can see, we have a much more colorful path, which will add more interesting look to our animation. Also, you already know this cool trick where you can just duplicate your shape and change this gradient stroke by selecting it and setting this stroke to solid color. We can make it a lot bigger, like to 22. And in stroke, we can change this opacity to smaller value like 77. So it will also have a bit of glow. And now, as you know, we can animate this path with trim path. So let's click here on add and click on trim path. And if we will open this trim path, we basically want to repeat this kind of animation which we created earlier. Just make sure that your path starts about there where we will start our animation. It will be visually easier to see where this animation starts. So it looks like it will start about here. Let's animate our end position, set it to 0, create a keyframe, and here where it ends, let's set it to 100. And now we have this kind of animation. We can also select this final keyframe and add this kind of curved motion. And now what we want to have is slow movement at the start. So let's select this keyframe as well and also add this kind of animation. And now basically by changing this curve, we need to make sure that it stays behind this circle. So now it looks like it's going too fast. So we can just tweak this curve. Okay, now it looks pretty good, but here we can see that it a bit doesn't keep up. And we don't really have to change everything in curves. Once we have this basic animation, we can just exit this graph editor and then just tweak this animation speed by tweaking these keyframes. And by simply spreading apart or squeezing them together, you can get this animation which will repeat the animation of the circle. By the way, you can just deselect your layer to see it better. And now as you can see, we have this perfect animation, which looks great. But what we can also see that we have this rough cut. And to fix this, we want to go to the stroke of each shape. So here in stroke, we want to change this butt cap to round cap, which will fix this issue. And also here on shape 1, we want to change this gradient stroke from butt cap to round cap. Now it looks much more beautiful. And finally, we want to add animation to our start. so it will start to disappearing as well. So maybe about here, we want to create a keyframe, and a bit later, like here, we want to set to 100%. Now we want to have also this slow movement at the start and slower movement here at the end. And we can just tweak this kind of curve to get any look which you like. And also by tweaking these keyframes, you can change the speed of animation. And finally, you can press 0 on numpad to see the final result. As you can see, we have really smooth and nice animation. And if you want to have a bit more faster kind of animation, you can also tweak these curves to have a bit more spike. So with this spike of the start animation, you can make sure that you have this kind of more dramatic look. And at this point, it really helps to change the path and set it below the circle and texture, so we would see this final result. Okay, now we have this kind of animation of this line with the different kind of gradient, which looks even more interesting than this first path. But to add even more complexity, we can just duplicate this path, just select it and press Ctrl D to duplicate it, and simply just press S on keyboard to change the scale and make it a bit smaller like this. And now we can just open this path 3, go to the contents, and here in this stroke, we can change this stroke width to smaller value, which is our glow. And this shape 1, which is our core, we can change stroke as well to maybe 7. So this one will be a lot more thinner. And what is cool about these shape layers, that you can also add a little dash between them. Go to this shape layer, which is our core. As you can see, it's not a glow one, this is with the color. And if we will go to gradient stroke, we can open it and we can click on this plus sign. And as you can see, we've added some dashes. And if we will click another time, it will add gaps. So let's increase amount of gaps and let's make it these dashes a bit longer. Something like this looks fine. And as you can see, we already have this pretty cool animation. And one thing which you can also change is go to taper and change this start length. Basically, it will taper this end here, which is also a pretty cool effect. I didn't really do it in preview for this class, but I thought it's a really cool effect, which you should know. And finally, to add a bit more randomness to it, you can change the color gradient. So as you remember, this shape 1 is with the color gradient. We can just select this shape 1. And we can just tweak these colors. For example, we can add a bit different color if you want. But for this example, I feel like this works fine. And final thing which I want to show you, that you can select this path, which is smaller one, and press U on keyboard to see our animation. And you can just tweak this start animation. Make sure to change only the start animation, because this end animation is really crucial. It's when it draws this line. But if you will tweak this start animation, you will add a bit of randomness, which will add more complexity to this effect. And exactly the same I did with this last path here. This is why we are not going to make this last path, because it's exactly the same as this first path. And I don't want to waste any time of this class. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how you can create this animation word, which is a really cool part of this class. See you in the next video.